Welcome back. This is Lauren Kimball for ANI 150. Now, before we move on to the next stage of the Sci-Fi crate, namely laying out the UV maps for the low poly mesh, I want to address the workflow we just utilized for reinforcing our low poly. So, in the previous videos, we duplicated the low poly group, created a high poly group, and then we went in very meticulously and reinforced all the edges so that when we press smooth display, like the smooth preview, it gives us a Sci-Fi crate that looks like our Sci-Fi crate, as opposed to the inflatable proximity that we get if we took the low poly and tried to smooth it, right? So many of you probably thought, man, that's a really meticulous, really time-consuming way of going about it, and you're right, it is. However, I think there is value to doing things manually, especially when you're learning, and I think there's value in some of the new tools that we got to apply to this. But in all fairness, I'm going to go ahead and show you a much quicker workaround so that for future projects you don't feel like you have to go in and do everything manually. Again, there's benefit to it. Certain objects you're going to want to manually fence, but there are others where this technique, what we're about to utilize, would be just as efficient. So I turned off the high poly group and I'm turning on the low poly group. Okay, so if I grab this group, as you can see, not reinforced. I'm going to grab that low poly group and I'm going to press Control D. So now I've got a duplicated version. I'm going to go back to my original one and turn its visibility off. So the only thing that I have visible is crate low group 2. I'm going to rename this crate underscore high underscore 2.0 underscore groups. This is the second high poly crate that we're crafting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click just the crate. I'm not going to click anything else. And it doesn't really matter at this point if you're going to turn everything off or not, but I'm just going to grab this one crate, one part of the crate, and I'm going to press Control B. When I press Control B, it applies a bevel to my mesh. So if I go to shading and say wireframe on shading, what you'll see is that the other pieces that I didn't select, like the handles for instance, or the little bars or straps, they don't look any different. But the crate itself, it's got this little tiny bevel applied to every single edge on the crate. Now that's fine, just the way it is, the default, but that isn't what we were looking for. What we were looking for was to have our original edges that are reinforced on either side. Really easy to accomplish though. Over here is this little box. If this box disappeared, like for example if you grab the move tool, it will make that box disappear. To summon it back, just press T. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into segments and change it from 1 to 2. And when I did that, it restored the original edge in between those reinforced edges. And so this is basically the end result of what we wanted when we went through and did it manually. This is a little tight. We didn't quite go this tight with it, but that's where the fraction option comes in. I could change this to 1, for instance, and now everything is spread out much further. And if I press 3, so just click on the box, press 3, and we can turn off the wire shade or wireframe on shaded so you can see it better. It's looking really good. It had a really good outcome. Yeah, there's a lot of polygon faces involved, and you're not always going to have as much control, but for some objects, a simple bevel gets the job done. Now let's say I wanted to do these handles next. In fact, this time I'm going to press Control 1. Press Control 1, it stopped the recording. That was fun. Alright, well I've resumed recording, so let's get back to this. So when we were beveling these edges, if I were to grab this handle and I were to just press bevel, like Control B, it adds a bevel to every edge and it reinforces all these edges, which is a very strange result. It doesn't have the nice smoothness that we want. So I'm going to press Undo. I only want to bevel the end cap. Remember, we don't have to worry about these pieces because they are missing end caps, and as a result, when you smooth them, they're not going to necessarily warp or change in any dramatic way. So it's really just this that we need to worry about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab the edge loop here, and before I do, I want to go ahead and make sure that I am selecting it on both sides. So I'm going to go over to the top here where symmetry is at. This is another place where you can find the symmetry tool besides the Modeler's Toolkit. And I'm going to go go to world Z. Excuse me, frog in my throat there. Nope, doesn't what we want. Let's try world X. Yep, that's what we want. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab the edge loop here and go to my other side and grab the edge loop here, holding down shift. So when I press 4, I can see orange on both sides. If I grab my move tool, you can see it moving on both sides. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in to one of these, and I'm gonna press Control. I keep toggling off my camera recorder. Sorry about that. All right, so I've got the edges selected on both ends, and I'm just gonna press Control B, which opens up my bevel. Let's go ahead and change segments to 2, and let's go ahead and reduce the fraction to like 0.1. There we go. And now I can go ahead and select the model in object mode. When I press smooth, it's got a nice smoothed in without having to go through a lot of work. All right, and you can basically do that everywhere on this, where you just go in and, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to go into that mode. You basically go in and just apply a bevel to everything, and that would be another way of getting your mesh to be fenced without putting in as much work. I still think huge benefit to actually going through and putting in the work to fencing your edges, because you need the practice with the edge loop tool. It's good to understand what's happening. If I just said, hey, go bevel this mesh, you might not be able to appreciate exactly what the tool is doing. So you get a little upset with me for making you go through all that, but I think in the end it will benefit you. So hope this helped, and I will see you in the next step.